Have you ever stopped to think that maybe it's not just tiredness? And if this exhaustion you feel every day is not your problem, but the symptom of an entire system sick? In today's video, with the help of Byung-Chul Han, I'll show you why you live burnt out, even when you do everything right, and how that tiredness reveals the dark truth behind the productivity society. If you think the problem is a lack of willpower, this video will turn your vision upside down. Because here's the truth that no one wants to talk about. You're not tired by chance. You're tired because you've been programmed to be. The system needs you to believe that it's your problem, that you're not strong enough, that you need to try harder. But the reality is that you're being exploited by the very idea of freedom. And when you understand that, when you stop blaming yourself and start seeing the game for what it really is, then you'll be able to get your energy, your focus, and your life back. 1. You've been tricked. You grew up believing a lie. You were told that if you worked hard, tried hard enough, if you were disciplined and focused, you would be rewarded with success, happiness, and fulfillment. They sold you the idea that constant tiredness is normal, that it is part of adult life, that it is the price of success. But here's the truth that no one wants you to find out. You've been programmed to get tired. The system needs you to believe that the problem is individual, that you are not strong enough, that you need to optimize more. Because when you take the blame for your own burnout, you never question who really benefits from your burnout. Byung-Chul Han calls this the society of tiredness. It is no longer a disciplinary society where someone from the outside forces you to work. Now it's worse. You oblige yourself. You explore yourself voluntarily, thinking that you are being free, when in fact you are being the executioner yourself. Think with me. How many times have you felt guilty about resting? How many times have you looked at your phone at 10 o'clock at night and thought, I can still answer those emails? How many times have you compared yourself to that Instagram profile that seems to produce 24 hours a day? This is no coincidence. It's design. The neoliberal system has discovered something genius. It is much more efficient to make you exploit yourself than to exploit you directly. When exploitation comes from outside, you can rebel, you can resist, you can blame the boss, the system. But when exploitation comes from within, when you charge yourself, pressure yourself, exhaust yourself, then you have no one to fight against. You fight against yourself. And the cruelest thing is that they sold you this as empowerment. Be the CEO of your life. You are a one-person company. Invest in yourself. All these motivational phrases you see out there are sophisticated ways to turn you into a willing slave. You no longer work for someone, you work for an idealized version of yourself that is never satisfied. The result? Mass burnout, generalized anxiety, modern depression. Burnout syndrome has become an epidemic because everyone is trying to be a high-performance machine in a race that has no finish line. You've been deceived into believing that your mental exhaustion is personal weakness, that your emotional fatigue is a lack of discipline, that if you were doing it right, you wouldn't feel that way. But the truth is the opposite. If you're tired, it's because the system is working perfectly. You're being exploited so efficiently that you don't even realize it. The first step to getting out of this trap is to stop blaming yourself. His constant weariness is not a defect of character. It is a symptom of a sick system that needs its energy to survive. And when you understand that, when you stop fighting with yourself and start seeing the game for what it really is, then you can start playing for real. 2. The invisible trap. The most efficient trap is the one you can't see. And the current system has created the perfect trap. It has convinced you that you are free while trapping you in ways you can't even imagine. You wake up, pick up your cell phone, check notifications, answer messages, consume content, work, produce, perform, and go to sleep thinking you've made free choices. But he didn't. Byung-Chul Han explains that we live in a society of transparency, where everything needs to be visible, measurable, optimizable. His life became data. How many steps have you taken today? How many hours did you sleep? What is your productivity? How many likes have you received? You've become a set of metrics that need to constantly improve. The trap works like this. They give you tools that are supposed to set you free, but actually trap you more. The smartphone that should connect you with the world disconnects you from yourself. Social networks that should bring people together create more isolation and comparison. The productivity apps that should organize your life turn every moment into a task to be accomplished. You don't even realize it, but you're being monitored all the time. Not by cameras or secret agents, but by algorithms that know you better than you know yourself. They know when you're sad by the kind of music you listen to. They know when you are anxious about the time you spend on your cell phone. They know when you are insecure by the products you research. And they use this information to keep you trapped in a vicious cycle. The more you consume, the emptier you feel. The emptier you feel, the more you consume. The more you produce, the more pressure you feel to produce more. The more you compare, the more inadequate you feel. It is a perfect self-feeding system. The trap is invisible because you don't feel the currents. No one forces you to check Instagram 50 times a day. No one forces you to work late. No one forbids you to rest. But somehow, you can't stop. Because prison is not on the outside, it's in your head. The system has found that it is much more efficient to control your desires than to control your actions. If they control what you want, you will do what they want thinking you are doing what you want. It's manipulation at the molecular level. That's why you always feel dissatisfied, always running after something, always with the feeling that you're missing something, because it was programmed to feel that way. Constant dissatisfaction is fuel for the system. If you were satisfied, you would stop consuming, producing, performing. The trap is so sophisticated that it uses its own wits against you. The smarter you are, the more ways you find to optimize yourself, to improve yourself, to explore yourself. You read self-help books to be more productive. He takes courses to be more efficient. Meditate to have more focus. Everything becomes a tool for self-exploration. And the most perverse, when you finally realize that you are trapped, the system offers you more products to free you. Mindfulness apps, digital detox retreats, life balance coaches. Everything becomes a commodity, even its own liberation. The only way out of the trap is to first recognize that it exists. Stop thinking that everything is an individual choice and start seeing the patterns, the structures, the incentives that shape your behavior without you realizing it. 3. Slaves of freedom. Here is the cruelest paradox of our time. We have never been so free and we have never been so slaves. You can choose where to work, who to relate to, what to consume, how to live. But somehow, all of these choices lead you to the same place. Exhaustion, anxiety, a feeling of emptiness. How is this possible? Because they gave you freedom of choice, but not freedom not to choose. They gave you the freedom to work wherever you want, but not the freedom not to work. They gave you the freedom to express yourself, but not the freedom to be silent. They gave you the freedom to connect, but not the freedom to disconnect. Byung-Chul Han calls this the violence of positivity. It's no longer you must, it's you can. It's no longer you have to, it's you're free to. But that freedom comes with an invisible pressure. If you can, you must. If you are free to succeed, then failure is your fault. If you can be happy, then sadness is your choice. The result is that you have become a slave to your own possibilities. Every opportunity that you don't take turns into guilt. Each potential that does not realize becomes frustration. Every goal you don't achieve becomes proof that you're not good enough. Freedom became prison. Think about the pressure you feel to optimize every aspect of life. Your career needs to be always growing. Your body needs to be always improving. Your relationships need to be always evolving. Your mind needs to be always learning. There is no room to stagnate, to be mediocre, to simply exist. You have become a one-person company, and like any company, you need to constantly grow or die. You are the CEO, the employee, the product, and the consumer of your own life. He works 24 hours a day on his own project, always dissatisfied with the results, always looking for the next optimization. Modern slavery does not use physical chains, it uses psychological chains. You are not obliged to work, you want to work. You are not forced to produce, you feel the need to produce. You are not forbidden to rest, you feel guilty when you rest. It is the most efficient form of exploitation ever invented. And the most perverse thing is that this slavery disguises itself as self-realization. Follow your passion, do what you love, turn your dreams into reality. All these motivational phrases are sophisticated ways to make you work harder, produce more, try harder, thinking you are doing it for yourself. The system has found that it's much easier to exploit you when you believe you're breaking free. When you work 12 hours a day in your own business, you don't complain about exploitation, you celebrate entrepreneurship. When you stay up late studying to improve your career, you don't see it as extra work, you see it as an investment in yourself. But here's the truth that no one wants to talk about. You're not free when all your choices lead you to the same outcome. You're not free when you can't stop optimizing yourself. You are not free when your identity depends on your productivity. True freedom is not having more options, it is having the option not to choose. It's not being able to do everything, it's being able to do nothing. It's not about being the best you can be, it's about simply being who you are, without having to justify yourself or constantly improve yourself. 4. The secret vice. You have an addiction and you don't even know it. It's not drugs, it's not alcohol, it's not cigarettes. It's something much more subtle and much more addictive. Digital dopamine. Each notification, each like, each new message triggers a small dose of pleasure in your brain. And like any addiction, you need larger and larger doses to feel the same effect. The problem is that this addiction was engineered by some of the brightest minds on the planet. Former employees of Google, Facebook, Apple openly admit they created addictive products on purpose. They used casino techniques, neuroscience studies, behavioral psychology to hack your brain and keep you glued to the screen. Byung-Chul Han talks about the like society, where your self-esteem depends on the constant approval of strangers. You post a photo and check how many likes you've received. You share an opinion and monitor the reactions. You live on an emotional roller coaster based on numbers that don't mean anything real. But addiction goes beyond social networks. It is the addiction to constant information. You can't go 5 minutes without checking something. Email, WhatsApp, news, YouTube. Your brain has been conditioned to seek constant stimulation. Silence, boredom, contemplation became unbearable. And that's literally changing the structure of your brain. Your ability to concentrate is decreasing. Your tolerance for boredom is fading. Your ability to be present is being destroyed. You're developing something scientists call a popcorn brain, always jumping from one stimulus to another, never being able to delve into anything. The result is a specific form of tiredness, fragmented attention fatigue. You are not physically exhausted, you are mentally overloaded. He processed thousands of irrelevant information, made hundreds of unnecessary micro-decisions, divided his attention between dozens of simultaneous tasks. Your brain is not designed for this. It evolved to focus on one thing at a time, to have rest periods, to process information slowly. But now you force it to work like a computer, multitasking, high-speed, parallel processing. And like any machine pushed beyond limits, it breaks. The chronic social fatigue you feel is not laziness, it is cognitive overload. Your brain is constantly on, constantly processing, constantly deciding. Even when you think you're relaxing watching Netflix, you're still consuming information. You're still stimulating the same neural circuits. And here's the cruelest thing. The system sells you the solution to the problem it created. Meditation apps to calm the mind they have agitated. Productivity courses to organize the life they have disorganized. Digital therapies to treat the anxiety they have caused. You're stuck in a vicious cycle. The more connected you get, the more disconnected you feel from yourself. The more information you consume, the less wisdom you develop. The more productive you try to be, the more unproductive you become. It's like trying to put out a fire with gasoline. The secret addiction is not only individual, it is collective. The whole society is addicted to speed, to novelty, to constant stimulation. No one can tolerate the natural rhythm of life anymore. Everything needs to be instantaneous, optimized, accelerated. But here's the liberating truth. You can detox. You can regain your attention, your presence, your ability to be with yourself without needing external stimulus. You can break the cycle and discover that real life, slow life, contemplative life is much richer than any digital feed. 5. Always insufficient. No matter what you do, it's never enough. You finish one project and you're already thinking about the next one. He hits a goal and immediately sets a bigger one. He achieves something he always wanted and discovers that he does not feel as fulfilled as he expected. Welcome to the culture of infinite performance, where enough doesn't exist. Byung-Chul Han describes this as the performance society, where you are no longer judged by what you are, but by what you produce. Their identity is intertwined with their productivity. Your value as a person depends on your results. You are no longer allowed to simply exist. You constantly need to prove that you deserve to occupy space in the world. The questioned meritocracy we live in has convinced you that everything depends on your individual effort. If you're not where you want to be, it's because you haven't tried hard enough. If you don't have what you want, it's because you haven't worked hard enough. If you are not happy, it is because you have not optimized your life properly. The pressure is all yours. But here's what no one tells you. The game is designed to be unwinnable. The rules are constantly changing. The success criteria are mobile. What was considered good yesterday is now mediocre. You're running on a treadmill that speeds up whenever you can keep up. Think about the pressure for results you feel every day. At work, you need to hit goals that increase every quarter. In the gym, you need to constantly improve your performance. In relationships, you always need to be more interesting, more attractive, more available. In your personal life, you need to always be growing, evolving, developing. There is no room for mediocrity, for stagnation, for simply maintaining what you have already achieved. Everything needs to be always improving. You have become a permanent optimization project, a work under construction that is never ready, and that's exhausting. The excessive self-pressure you feel was not born out of nowhere. It was cultivated by a system that needs your constant dissatisfaction to work. If you were satisfied with what you have, you would stop consuming it. If she were happy with who she is, she would stop trying to improve herself. If I thought that was enough, I would stop producing more. The current economic system depends on infinite growth, and for that it needs people who never feel complete. You are trained since you were a child to always want more. More toys, more grades, more recognition, more money, more status, more experiences. Contentment is seen as conformism, satisfaction as a lack of ambition. And social networks amplify this exponentially. You are constantly exposed to the edited versions of others' lives. Everyone seems to be living better, producing more, being happier. Comparison on social media creates constant pressure to live up to unrealistic standards. You develop what psychologists call permanent imposter syndrome. Always thinking that you don't deserve what you've achieved, that at any moment they'll find out that you're not as good as you seem, that you need to work twice as hard to prove your worth. It's a constant existential anxiety. The cruelest thing is that this programmed dissatisfaction disguises itself as motivation. Never settle, always seek more, you can be better. Motivational phrases that are actually sophisticated ways to keep you dissatisfied, always chasing a carrot that moves away as you get closer. But here's the liberating truth. You're enough. Not because he achieved everything he wanted, but because his humanity does not depend on his productivity. You have intrinsic value, not market value. And when you understand that, you can finally stop running and start living. 6. Programmed guilt. You feel guilty for resting. Guilty of not responding to messages immediately. guilty of watching Netflix instead of studying something useful, guilty of sleeping 8 hours when he could have been producing, guilty of having free time when others are working. This guilt is not natural. It was programmed into you. The system discovered something genius. It is much more efficient to make you police yourself than to police you directly. When pressure comes from outside, you can resist. But when the pressure comes from within, when you charge yourself, judge yourself, punish yourself, then there is no escape. You have become your own jailer. Byung-Chul Han explains that we live in a society where idleness has been criminalized. Not officially, but psychologically. You no longer have the right to do nothing without justifying yourself. Every moment needs to be productive, useful, optimized. Free time has become wasted time. Guilt for resting is especially perverse because it goes against your biological nature. Your body and mind need periods of downtime to regenerate, process information, consolidate memories. But you've been conditioned to see rest as laziness, as a lack of discipline, as a waste of potential. Think about how many times you've felt bad about taking a vacation. How many times have you worked even though you were sick? How many times have you canceled personal plans to solve something at work? How many times have you felt obliged to always be available, always responsive, always on? This is not dedication. It is self-exploration. The hustle culture romanticized tiredness. Sleep when you die, work while they sleep, success has no schedule. Phrases that turn exhaustion into a virtue, that make you feel proud that you're destroying your mental health in the name of productivity. And when you finally break down, when you develop burnout, anxiety, depression, the system blames you again. You didn't know how to manage your time. You didn't set limits. You didn't take care of your mental health. As if it were possible to protect oneself individually from a systemic problem. The difficulty you feel to rest is not personal weakness, it is social conditioning. You've been trained to associate your value as a person with your productivity. When he is not producing, he feels that he is not justifying his existence. It is a sophisticated form of mind control. The fear of being unproductive has become a collective phobia. You are terrified of being seen as lazy, as someone who does not make an effort, as someone who does not take advantage of opportunities. He prefers to destroy himself by working than to run the risk of being judged as accommodating. But here's the truth that will set you free. Rest is not a luxury, it's a necessity. It is not a prize for having worked hard, it is a basic right for being alive. It's not something you need to deserve, it's something you need to function as a human being. Rest is, in fact, a political act. When you rest without guilt, you are resisting a system that wants to exploit you to exhaustion. When you set boundaries, you're saying no to a culture that wants to consume all your energy. When you prioritize your well-being, you are questioning values that put productivity above humanity. Programmed guilt only works as long as you don't realize that it has been programmed. When you understand that your feelings of guilt are not yours, but have been implanted by a system that benefits from your self-exploitation, you can begin to deprogram yourself. Stopping is resistance. Resting is revolutionary. Taking care of yourself is an act of rebellion against a system that wants to use you until you break. And when you understand that, you can finally give yourself permission to be human. 7. Time sequestered. Your time is no longer yours. It has been hijacked by notifications, interruptions, urgent demands that are not actually urgent. You wake up with the intention of doing something important and end the day wondering where the hours have gone. Welcome to the age of fragmented attention, where your most precious possession is being stolen without you realizing it. Byung-Chul Han talks about the crisis of attention as one of the most serious symptoms of today's society. You can no longer concentrate deeply on anything. Your mind constantly jumps from one thing to another like a monkey jumping from branch to branch. And that's not attention deficit, it's intentional design. The current economic system no longer sells products, it sells attention. Your attention is literally sold to advertisers. The more time you spend on a platform, the more money it makes. That's why they invest billions to capture and maintain their focus. You are not the customer. You are the product. Think about how your day actually works. You try to read a book, but your phone vibrates. You try to have a deep conversation, but an urgent message arrives. You try to work on something important, but an unnecessary meeting arises. You try to relax, but you remember something you need to do. Its time was fragmented into such small pieces that it lost any real value. Multitasking that you were sold as a superpower is actually a curse. Your brain can't really do several things at once. What it does is quickly switch between tasks, losing energy and efficiency with each change. It's like constantly changing gears in a car. You use more fuel and go slower. The result is that you're always busy but never really productive. Always doing something but never finishing anything important. Always connected but never really present. You've become a productivity zombie, constant movement with no real direction. And here's the cruelest thing. You've been sold tools to better manage your time, but those tools end up being even more time-consuming. Productivity applications, organization systems, optimization methods. You spend more time organizing your life than living it. The accelerated time of modern life has created constant time anxiety. You always feel like you're late, that you're missing something, that you should be doing something else. Even when you're doing exactly what you planned, you feel like you could be doing it better, faster, more efficiently. Your overloaded brain can no longer process experiences deeply. You live everything on the surface, always running to the next thing. You don't have time to digest what happened, to reflect on what you've learned, to simply be present in the moment. Speed has become an addiction. You can no longer tolerate the natural rhythm of things. He wants everything to be instantaneous. Food, transportation, communication, results. Patience has become weakness. Slowness has become incompetence. But some of the most important things in life are slow: relationships, wisdom, real growth. Fragmented focus is destroying your ability to think deeply, to create genuinely, to connect authentically. You're missing out on the most human skill of all: contemplation. The ability to simply be with your thoughts without needing external stimulus. But here's the good news. You can reclaim your time. It can rebuild your attention. It can resist temporal hijacking. It's not easy, because you're fighting systems designed by geniuses to get you hooked. But it is possible. The first step is to recognize that your time has been hijacked. The second is to decide that you want him back. The third is to start establishing borders, to say no, to protect your moments of depth as if they were treasures, because they are. 8. Stolen identity. Who are you when you're not producing? When you are not working, studying, optimizing, performing? If you had difficulty answering this question, it is because your identity has been hijacked. You don't know who you are anymore beyond what you do. And that's exactly what the system wanted. Byung-Chul Han observes that we live in an era where being has been replaced by doing. You are no longer a person who works. You are the work that does. You are no longer someone who has a profession. You are the profession. Their humanity has been reduced to their economic function. Think about how you present yourself to new people. He probably talks first about what he does professionally. I'm a lawyer. I'm a designer. I'm an entrepreneur. Rarely do you say, I'm someone who likes to read. I'm someone who values friendships. I'm someone who appreciates silence. His identity was colonized by work. And when work defines who you are, you can no longer stop working without going into an existential crisis. Vacations turn into anxiety. Retirement becomes depression. Unemployment becomes identity collapse. Because if you're not what you do, then who are you? The system benefits enormously from this confusion. When your identity depends on work, you work much harder. When your value as a person depends on productivity, you produce much more. When your self-esteem depends on professional success, You sacrifice much more. It is a perfect form of voluntary exploitation. The culture of high performance has turned you into a personal brand. You need to constantly sell yourself, promote yourself, optimize yourself. Every aspect of your life becomes content for LinkedIn. Each experience becomes a networking opportunity. Each relationship becomes a strategic connection. You have become a product that needs to be marketed, and social networks amplify this exponentially. You heal your life to seem more interesting, more successful, more inspiring. He lives for the feed, not for himself. Your actual experience takes a back seat to your online image. You become a character in your own life. The modern existential emptiness that so many people feel is no coincidence. When you reduce your humanity to performance metrics, when you transform your life into an optimization project, when you replace being with doing, there is a hole left where your essence should be. You've lost touch with fundamental parts of yourself. He no longer knows what he really likes, only what he should like. He no longer knows what he wants, only what he should want. He no longer knows who he is, only who he should be. He lives in an edited version of himself that he no longer recognizes. The pressure to have a meaningful life has become another source of anxiety. You can no longer simply live, you need to live with purpose. He can no longer work to pay the bills, he needs to follow his passion. It can no longer be common. It needs to be special. Even the search for meaning became a performance. But here's the liberating truth. You are so much more than you make. Your humanity does not depend on your productivity. Your value is not in your resume. Your identity is not your profession. You exist independently of what you produce. Reclaiming your identity is a process of subtraction, not addition. It's not about becoming more, it's about discovering who you already are when you stop trying to be someone else. It's about reconnecting with aspects of yourself that have been buried by performance pressure. You have the right to be common, to have a simple life, not to be extraordinary, of existing without justification, of being human without having to be a high-performance machine. And when you understand that, you can finally stop acting and start living. 9. The silent rebellion. The revolution will not happen in the streets. It will happen in your mind, the moment you decide to stop participating in the game that is destroying you. The most powerful rebellion is silent. You simply stop voluntarily exploiting yourself. Stop chasing empty metrics. Stop sacrificing your humanity on the altar of productivity. Byung-Chul Han suggests that resistance to the current system cannot be frontal because the system feeds even on the opposition. When you protest against it, you're still paying attention, you're still engaged, you're still participating. The real resistance is strategic indifference. Questioning the system does not mean becoming a radical revolutionary. It means starting to ask simple questions. Why do I need to be available all the time? Why do I have to optimize every moment? Why does my value depend on what I produce? Why can't I just exist without justifying myself? Silent rebellion begins with small acts of disobedience. Not responding to messages immediately, not checking email outside of work hours, not posting on social media for a few days, not comparing yourself to other people, not feeling guilty about resting. Every time you choose your humanity over your productivity, you're resisting. Every time you prioritize your well-being over external expectations, you are rebelling. Every time he says no to another unnecessary demand, he is fighting for his freedom. The power of silence is underestimated in a culture that values only noise. When you stop feeding the system with your energy, with your attention, with your anxiety, it starts to lose power over you. When you stop caring about empty metrics, they stop controlling you. Resistance doesn't have to be dramatic. It can be simply choosing quality over quantity, depth over speed, presence over productivity, being about doing. These are small choices that, accumulated, completely transform your relationship with life. You can resist by setting clear boundaries, sacred times where no one can interrupt you, physical and mental spaces where work does not enter. relationships that do not depend on your usefulness, activities that have no purpose other than the pleasure of doing them. The silent rebellion is also collective. When you stop participating in the constant competition, you give permission for others to do the same. When you normalize rest, it makes it easier for others to rest. When you question the culture of productivity, you open up space for more honest conversations. The system counts on his voluntary complicity. It needs you to believe that you have no choice, that things are the way they are, that you need to adapt or die. But you always have a choice. You can choose not to play a game that was designed for you to lose. True freedom is not getting everything you want. It's not wanting everything you are made to believe you should want. It's not about being successful in terms of the system. It's about setting your own terms of success. It's not being the best. It's being yourself. Silent rebellion is an act of self-love. It's you deciding that your life is worth more than the expectations of others, that your mental health is worth more than your productivity, that its humanity is worth more than its economic function. When you stop exploring yourself, when you set limits, when you prioritize your well-being, you are not being selfish. It's been revolutionary. It is showing that it is possible to live differently. It is planting seeds of a more humane society. 10. True freedom. Real freedom is not having more options. It is having fewer needs. It's not being able to do everything. It's consciously choosing what's worth doing. It's not being free to explore yourself endlessly. It's being free from the compulsion to explore. And when you understand this, you can finally begin to rebuild your life on your own terms. Byung-Chul Han shows us that authentic freedom begins with the ability to say no. No to unnecessary demands. No to unrealistic expectations. Not to the constant pressure to be more, to do more, to have more. The most powerful word on your journey of liberation is no. Rebuilding life and energy means first recognizing that you have a right to slow time. Right to moments of contemplation, right to experiences that don't generate content for social networks, right to relationships that are not networking, right to activities that don't make you more productive. True freedom is being able to be bored without feeling guilty. It is being able to have no opinion about everything. It is being able not to always be learning something new. It is being able to be mediocre in some areas of life. It is being able to exist without constantly justifying oneself. You can start by creating sacred spaces in your life, times of the day where no technology can enter, physical places where work does not have access, relationships where you don't need to perform, activities that make you feel human, not productive. Reconnecting with your humanity involves rediscovering simple pleasures that have not been colonized by the system. A conversation without an objective, a journey without a destination, an unhurried meal, a book without a deadline, a guiltless silence. Setting limits is not being difficult, it is being healthy. Not responding to messages immediately is not being rude, it is having limits. Not always being available is not being irresponsible, it is having a life. Prioritizing your well-being is not being selfish, it is being intelligent. True freedom also means accepting that you can't control everything. It cannot optimize every aspect of life. It cannot predict all the results. It cannot eliminate all uncertainty, and this is not a flaw, it is humanity. You can choose relationships based on real connection, not mutual utility. You can choose work that respects your limits, not one that exploits your dedication. You can choose to consume only what really adds value to your life, not what makes you feel like you're missing out. True productivity isn't about doing more things, it's about doing the right things. It's not about being efficient at everything, it's about being effective at what matters. It's not about maximizing output, it's about maximizing meaning. It's not about optimizing time, it's about honoring time. Recovering your energy means stopping spending it on things that don't matter. Stop worrying about opinions from people who don't know you. Stop pursuing goals that aren't yours. Stop living for an audience that doesn't exist. Real freedom is silent. It doesn't need to be announced, celebrated, shared. It is lived internally, felt deeply, expressed naturally. It is the difference between being free and appearing free. When you finally understand that you don't have to justify yourself for existing, that you don't have to prove yourself constantly, that you don't have to optimize every aspect of life, something magical happens. You stop being tired all the time, because he stops fighting himself. The society of tiredness only works as long as you believe you have no choice. But you always had. You can choose to live at your own pace, not at the pace of the system. You can choose your own success criteria. You can choose to be human in a culture that wants to turn you into a machine. And when you make those choices, when you reclaim your humanity, when you set your limits, you're not just breaking free. It is showing others that it is possible. It is creating an example that there is another way of living. It is planting seeds of a more humane, healthier, freer society.